Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So after God reveals himself on Mount Sinai and gives them the general, most important rules, or I can call them the master rules, the 10 Commandments, which include in them all the other rules of the Torah. Now, in chapter 21, in the book of Exodus, we begin the Eila HaMishpatim Asher Tasim Lefnehem. These are the rules, these are the laws that you should place before them. Place before them means that they should be crystal clear. It should be placed in front of them as if they're sitting down to enjoy a meal. Not that they have to start pulling laws and pulling information from this shelf, from that shelf, but it should be like an open book, like a prepared meal, literally. That means it should be crystal clear. But what are the rules? As we go along in chapter 21 and on, you see that there are many, many rules, or a plethora of rules that apply to day-to-day life, to matters pertaining to you and me, and even matters that are perhaps rare, but they may happen, and we have to know how to deal with them. And this brings the question. This is terribly curious. The very first thing, almost as an introduction to all these, quote, rules that you should place before them, is the rule of a Jewish slave. Now, what are the circumstances of a Jewish slave? So, primarily, one would become a slave, not literally a slave, it's just similar to a slave, but one would be called a Jewish slave if they were sold as a result of their bad actions. Let me explain. According to Torah law, if one steals, the punishment is exclusively restitution. In other words, you made the other party lose, now you make him whole. Only in certain circumstances does one have to also pay a fine in the form of paying double, as we see later in this portion. But if one cannot pay that back, in other words, he cannot rectify the ill that he had committed, that he created, he cannot undo the crime that he did because he doesn't have the money, then he gets sold as a servant. This is extremely rare. Imagine that a person shouldn't have any family or friends or anyone willing to step in and give him a loan or to somehow bail him out, or that he stole so much and he's so poor that he doesn't have the money to pay. The only means is to sell him as a servant and to keep him confined for 6 years. This is not a common thing. Certainly, it's not a very pleasant thing to talk about. A Jew, a Hebrew, becoming a slave. Why does the Torah pick this as the very first thing, almost as an introduction to all the civil laws, all the laws that it's going to introduce following this? What is this about? Perhaps what the Torah is telling us, before we go into all the rules and regulations, before we go into all the various scenarios, which some of them, perhaps many of them, result in some form of punishment or another, God is saying to us, I want to give you a general outlook. I want you to appreciate what the, quote, punishment in the Torah, the punishments in the Torah, what they're really all about. They're not punitive. Notice the word punitive is, you did this, I get you back. The law gets you back. The judicial system gets you back. The people get back at you. You see, for example, someone steals. It's terrible. And what do? What does society today do? You throw them into prison. Now, there is a certain aspect of it where you say this person needs to be off the streets and not continue to be a menace to society. But really what it is that we say, you paid your time. How is that paying your time? How is you sitting in prison, being absolutely unproductive, stripped of your freedom, paying for what you did? It isn't. And certainly it's not corrective or rehabilitational. And typically, what are the prison systems called? Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. It's usually anything but that. And that's what the Torah is telling us. Anytime there's a punishment in the Torah, even if it may seem severe, the true objective of it is not to, quote, get back at the person for what they've done, but rather to rehabilitate the person, to have the person get rid of their bad bones, so to speak, to have the person get rid of the root, the catalyst that brought them to do what they did, and to rehabilitate them, hopefully, to learn to behave better. In this case, somebody who steals, obviously, he has a very low self-image of himself, a very high disregard for others, and perhaps even for himself, his reputation, his own integrity. That's what the Torah says. He's going to have to now spend 6 years in the home of a very kind person. This person is going to provide for him, provide for his family. May not be the most exciting business investment. Imagine you get one employee and you have to pay for him, for his family, for everyone, and he lives in your home, and he has to be treated with utmost respect because he is, after all, another fellow Jew. But also he has a responsibility. He has to work. He has to give back. He can't just sit there and play video games all day, so to speak, and just eat and sleep. Oh, no, he has responsibility. And he has to produce. Now, this is a recipe, hopefully, the sum total of all of it, for him to come out after 6 years, which is like a whole period of time, and hopefully have learned how to live a good, stable life, and also to learn to respect himself by the respect that he received for the past 6 years. So the Torah is giving this to us as a general outlook, so to speak, an attitude. What is the Torah attitude to when someone does something wrong, when someone commits a crime, how to deal with it, how to go about it? Perhaps that's the reason why the Torah shared this as the first one.